So that's where I originally found out what post-traumatic stress was during 71, 73 when the boys were all coming back from Vietnam. Not to mention I put two and two together with my father on post-traumatic stress. My father was Bronze Star recipient in Korea, and not really understanding at a young age what post-traumatic stress was and the effects of other medicines on him, both pharmaceutical and liquid medicines, if you understand what I'm saying. I saw a degrading effect, and actually no effect with the post-traumatic stress. It just got worse because he got more depressed. Okay, so when I saw my father coming home from the post office a couple of times with some young bucks, and he said to me, don't know what they're smoking, he says, but I certainly feel different. That was back in 71, 73, and he had no idea. He thought marijuana was something you injected. Okay, that's reefer madness, that type of story that early depression, pre-depression folks normally have that opinion of. So I could see a development with my father. I could see a different development with the veterans that came home and who chose to, we'll call it in the elementary days, pot. Those that came home and smoked pot, they weren't so depressed. Yes, it was very primitive back then compared to what we have for strains today. But what did they do? They had a change of attitude. They were able to deal with a little bit more society, then go into the alternate side, drinking pharmaceutical and meds from the VA. I saw the repercussions of meds from the VA. It's not necessarily their fault. It's also got to do with the patient himself, okay? So I'm not putting the blame on anybody. So when I saw the repercussions of these pharmaceuticals, I started investigating more about what was the pot and why these guys, they went to work every day. They're 40-hour jobs, working some overtime, happy to be alive. They had a different attitude. They weren't so depressed. And I couldn't understand, what is this here? So then I went away. I went to my court. And then I had an opportunity to almost live what they lived, as close as that, and to come home to the same conditions that they came home to in 77. Okay, not so vicious, but the underlying spitting at you coming out of the Air Force Base over in California and Ontario, things of that nature. So what you did over there, are you going to be depressed coming home because of this? No. So what we did was I kept meeting with groups of guys who had almost the same issues as what I had. And remember, 77 and 78 it was a peculiar part of the military. Vietnam was really ending. Saigon wasn't notified, wasn't recognized as a city in really Vietnam until the end of 77 or something. So, you know, what happens over there happens over there, and you bring it back. Whether you can advertise it or not, you still have to live with it. So because you have to live with it, you have to find a way. You have to find two things that usually comes back with you. One, a post-traumatic stress and chronic pain injuries. Okay? To deal with the post-traumatic stress, you have to deal with yourself. There are alternatives. There's medicinal parts that the VA has, and I believe in the medicinal part of the medical marijuana. With that part of the post-traumatic stress, for me, I had to make peace with my God, okay, to get over this post-traumatic stress, okay? I don't sleep at night, but I'm happy I don't sleep because I feel I've made my peace. So that part right to me is eliminated on the post-traumatic stress for me. The major part for me is the chronic pain, my ankles, my knees, my broken parts of my bodies that are never going to heal, that are always going to be there. And I'm not looking for an alternative to make me hide, or make me fall away, to make me fade out of society. We want to take off that edge, just that curve. When that curve starts, that sine wave starts moving, it's a putrid feeling of trying to put 10 quarts in a 2-ounce container. Imagine the pressure that's in there. Think about it. Imagine a pressure in somebody's head, how they feel under post-traumatic stress, when they don't sleep, when they scare their child and the child pees their pants when they jump out of the closet for them. All this is part of with the post-traumatic stress. This is all that I've experienced, and I want to make sure, if I have that opportunity, to ensure that this doesn't happen to anybody else. It's a tough way to raise kids too. So I started getting involved in going to California, and then Oregon. And then I did more research and development with the Arizona-based medical marijuana facilities. They reached out to the veterans, and they were rather the first that I can realize that reach out to the veterans with the post-traumatic stress, okay? That they kind of worked it in there. Massachusetts does have requirements to get a medicinal marijuana certificate as a patient, and post-traumatic stress is certainly one of them. And I'll go over what most of them are in the state of Massachusetts here. So with that there, we started working on, I started working on how to alleviate this chronic pain. We knew that the type that they were smoking back in the 70s was helping with their head a little bit, right? Would we all agree that they didn't want no war anymore, okay? Think about it. So with that, not just that strand comes about, but another type of strand, a strand from Afghanistan, Pakistan, okay? Altogether an entirely different strain, okay? The strain that we used for the medicinal, psychiatric, primarily head medicine is called a sativa. It's a sativa plant that was an original plant, mostly a South American plant, a warmer climate plant, California, Arizona, that type of thing. It grows like a pine tree, tall and thin, different colors. Of course, they all have different smells, and I'll go over that later on. And that was primarily used for the head. And then we have this plant from Afghanistan, Pakistan. Small bushy plant, very tight buds, okay? Why tight buds? Because at night it gets cold over there. How does one heat themselves? They pull themselves in, and it has the same reaction with these buds in a cooler climate than it is a warmer climate. So here we have now an indica plant, small bush, very tight, very round. Then we get the sativa plant that grows like a pine tree, and it's primarily used for the psychiatric, and I'll go over that later on. And then we got a third plant, rudibellus, okay? It's primarily grown in the very northern hemisphere. It's called an autoflower. 60 days from the time you plant the seed to the time it harvests. It doesn't have to depend on any type of light cycle. We depend on light cycles to produce the finest medicine, where that type of plant is a 60-day turnaround cycle. It's usually very low in the THC, and it's a plant that is used up there, and that's, you know, what they can grow in that type of conditions. So now we have the rudibellus, we got the sativa, and we got the indica. Okay. With the indica is primarily used for pain. Okay, the pain, how it affects the individual is uncertain. It has to be tested. We know what 5 milligrams of a prescription does to an individual. We don't know particularly what indica would do to an individual. You would have to almost test your own strengths, okay? And I'll go over that as how you test your own strengths of consumption and how it affects you, okay, later on. So the indica is for the pain. With that pain, it usually hits, what it does for somebody like me is in my arthritic mode, when it starts to flare and peak, the inflammation is reduced. It's not automatic. Nothing is automatic, okay? It takes time. It takes 20, 30 minutes. It depends on how the consumption is also. With the sativa is primarily used to help alter, change, give you a boost in the daytime, a little bit of depression. It's primarily a daytime thing. It sometimes lifts you up, really gives you a little rush sometimes. Rush changes your heart rate, okay? Gets you working, but keeps you focused also. Again, we must say that the results, up, down, the middle, we don't know because every patient is different, every strain is different, has a different reaction on every patient, along with the THC value, the CBD value. It is all part of the patient to regulate themselves. We don't want to over-regulate somebody, but we certainly don't want to under-regulate themselves too, okay? So that's where we get into delivery processes and how we get the good effects, the bad effects, and some of the medium effects. And that all has got to do with the strain, the type of medicine they are, whether it's an indica, whether it's a sativa. And now here we got, imagine crossing a plum and a cherry or something. We have a hybrid too. And the hybrid allows you a combination of both. It's a mixture of both plants, okay? When it's grown, it turns out to have its own genes, its own particular plant. What we would do is we would take a small plant, an indica, maybe a female, however way we want the seeds to come out, and a male sativa. We would cross those plants in the germination style, okay? Allowing that to happen, then we would come up with our hybrid seed. That hybrid seed is a mixture of both of those together, which could conceivably give somebody a little bit of a lift in the daytime and a little bit of relief in conjunction with the loss of anxiety and all that that the sativa would give them, okay? So now we get the hybrid. We get, it could be 90 one side, 10%, 90 sativa, 10% indica. So now we know that at that case, you're more working towards getting up in the daytime, anti-anxieties, okay, anti-depression, that type of thing. So you know you're going to have a higher level of that. When you have the other side, 90% indica, 10% sativa, you know you're going to be in the couch, indica, in the couch. That's all. Everybody heard body buzzes and couch locks? That's what it is, okay? And that's used primarily for night. That's the pain deal, okay? But we have that opportunity, and here we go with the blends and mixes of the body and how it hits the body. Did I okay on this here? You pretty much, you understand with the hybrids and all that, and the mixture of the differences?
Me.
Yeah, I'm trying to explain the difference of what plant does to one versus the other, then when you combine the both of them too. And then what happens is, we're not gonna get the perfect blend for each individual, even though we know that each plant can do one thing or the other.
Right.
It's just a case of trying to find that problem. There's 2,700 varieties out there, 8,600 types of plants. But what we are trying to do is target the ones that are particularly so pain. Some, we don't want such high THC. People can't walk around dizzy and in a cloud. That's not what the medicine is all about. It's about functioning, functioning, functioning. So that's where we come in, the Ipswich Pharmaceutical Associates. We understand how the process is to be done, where we can help patients of different levels, either a higher level or a lower level of whatever they need. The smells, how many people know how stinky some of this stuff is? Okay, yeah. Well, I got a little thing to tell you about the smells. The smells are actually just the oils, you know, that come from the terpenes there. Okay, each plant, of course, has its own separate type of smell. It has its own different effect. Okay, so that's going a little bit too deep here, but what it is your pine sativa normally has a pine type of smell. Your indica would normally have like maybe an earthy or citrus type of smell, and then the hybrids get the combination of the both there, okay? Depends on the ratio of what you have, high and low on that. Consumption. Let's go to consumption, okay? Consumption is up to the individual. I think by today's health standards, it would be recommended that it would be non-smokable, to be honest with you, to eliminate most of the carcinogens. In the day, okay, you know, 30-something years ago, it'd be nothing for just smoking joints now, to passing each other. Today, the kids smoke spliffs of once. Usually a longer piece of cigar. They peel it off, they load up whatever they want for flour inside the flour is the butts. And then they mix it with tobacco, which is not very healthy as far as I'm concerned. Then there's vaporizing with butt. It's a machine that you put the butt in, it's charged with the battery, you insert it into a chamber with a hot spring coil. Inside that hot spring coil, I think it runs up to about 1700 degrees. What it does is it gets to the point where the smoke is eliminated, but the vapors are there. Inside these vapors, it's it's much quicker delivery too. Very much cleaner, okay? And for somebody who has an issue that they must consume in the daytime, they can consume non-conspicuously, I guess that's how we would say, without any major smell. You have the consumption of flour. Then you have the consumption of two vapors of oils too, okay? Oils and the concentrations of oils. What we do is, not me because we're not open yet, but the business in general, what they do is they take the flour, and by the way, you know, we only take female plants for this process. There's a sexing process here that we eliminate males. We use the males, put them aside, only use them for a seeding part of it. So the males are always eliminated. So we're only dealing with female plants here. These female plants are trimmed. During the trimming process, the outside of the leaves are collected. With that, they're dried and they are stored. With that, they are broken down to break down these oils of concentrates, okay? They are done in a couple of fashions. One is a butane setup, another one is a CO2 setup. The process is they usually put in 5 pounds of shake on one end of this machine, and they come up with 5 liters of this oil. This oil has a concentration level of somewhere in it could be from 55% up to as high as 80%, because what they've done is eliminate everything but the oils themselves. During that process, it is important that each plant is kept separate, because if you mix everything up, it'd be like mixing raisin oatmeal cookies with chocolate chip cookies and gingerbread cookies. You don't know what the heck you're going to get at the end. So the separation of rank through the whole process, the trimming stays separate. Say if it's a white widow, that stays by itself. It gets fabricated into oils all by itself. So when we post it on the shelf, that we know what it is and we know the effects of what this is. So we take those oils are in a vapor process, okay? During the other process, there's hash, okay? There's keef. Keef is the crystals on the top. That is the most concentrated. If you look at a plant, you'll see crystals on it sometimes. People say that they've been sprayed. That's not the case. Fine medicine will show you that it is sprinkles on it, okay? That's what they call it as a layman's term, but it's called the turpentines there. That's one of the way of collecting. Another way is we have, it's called dabs, waxes. It's a very hard type of high potency that looks like wax. And there are many ways to apply it. Sometimes there are pipes that they have a butane lighter. You blow out the nail and you put the little dab. When I say it's a dab, it's the size of a match head. That's the concentration level, and that's how small that dab is. It's heated up, formed into smoke, usually smoke through a water pipe or something like that, and consumed. Those are usually the people on the last side. I don't like to say that, but that's usually just the people who are that in that light. Okay, let's just say that. Okay, and then we have cookies, and we have brownies, and we have lollipops, and we have all the things that are necessary for those who have a problem with vapors, any type of smoke consumption, anything other than food. Now, with the edibles, again, remember I indicated that the oil's got a breakdown all the way down to the chain of command. It has to stay by itself. And that's why when we make the edibles, an individual can come to us and say, I got a lot of pain. How many cookies do I eat? Well, you don't eat multiple cookies, okay? What I want to do is, if I sell a cookie to somebody, I'm not lying, if I sell them a chocolate chip cookie, okay, that is loaded, okay, I want to sell them a whole box of chocolate chip cookies so I know that they don't eat the whole 5 of them that we give it to them. That's kind of my way of allowing them not to overeat, okay? If they're going to eat the cookies and if they get the munchies, they see another cookie, they're going to eat the other cookie. No, we give them a box of cookies so that they don't eat the medicinal cookies. Okay, because it takes time for that to really get activated into the system. So, the cookies are big, the lollipops are big, the gummy bears are big. Those are all baked in a bakery, just like any other place. You know, there'll be loaf bread available, there'll be butter available, there'll be, and butter is a great thing because it's an odd color when it gets done, believe it or not, a little different, but the concentration there, the taste is there, and then sometimes you can put a little mint in it, something to jazz up the taste and offset a little bit of what the taste is if you don't like it. Because remember, each one has a different taste. One might have a citrus, one might have an earthy taste, one might have an apple taste. Who knows, okay? I know, but most people just don't want that nasty taste. Let's see, what else? Our position right now in Ipswich is that, does everybody understand about THC and CBDs? What happens is THC is the primary element, okay, that you get high with. But it comes from a piece called THCA, which is, when it's wet, there is no THC to it. It has to actually dry to activate those pieces, okay? So, and that's, most of these doctors, they don't understand that level of the process on the medicinal side. That's just because they've never been exposed to it. And the DEA is really on their butt. So, that's it. Then we get, with that, with the breakdown of that THC and the CBD is primarily in the small plants. They're designed for the Afghani-style plants, the medicinal plants on the other side of the world. Okay, so you get east and west pretty much coming to America to make our own melting pot. That's basically it. So they also have different receptors inside of the head, and this is where the big important part is. And the receptors with the medical marijuana in general, there are shutoffs in the receptors, and most of the receptors are not in the brain stem here, where the other type of receptors are for, and in the center of the head for the prescriptions, the opiates and stuff like that. They're the happy receptors. There is no shutoff, pretty much. But with the cannabinoid receptors, there is a shutoff. That's why you in the couch and you go to sleep, pretty much. Okay. I don't know actually of any type of deaths coming into this industry. And to be honest with you, I've been involved in this 41 years, this industry. Since I came home, it's been something that's intrigued me for a long time. So I've never seen an overdose on this. I've seen people that, yeah, they had better pull over the side of the road. There is an intoxication level, the same as driving an automobile, and they should be held to the same responsible level as any type of DUI. Okay, that's patients or not. They have to withhold it, come up to a particular standards. That's all. I know this is sometimes, with regards to the VA, and when I was going to the VA and they had asked me about how do I handle my pain, I told them I have a particular pain management regimen, and they asked me how. I says, an hour a day, I put my feet up in the, and I smoke some medicinal marijuana. They said, you realize that we could take away everything you have? I said, that's okay. This was quite a while ago, okay? So recently, what has happened is, since now nurses can give out prescriptions for medical marijuana, PTs can give out prescriptions now over the last couple of weeks. Yeah, it's in the news there, in Massachusetts.
In the VA, you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the VA, no, I'm not talking about the VA privately, but the VA has come out and said that they will work with a patient if they feel
I think the
that
VA
medical
just
marijuana-
initiated a study about a month ago.
So I think that's the whole thing is like data. You know, we're talking about the brain. Something that has changed within the past couple of years that Greg can speak to because he was a special forces medic in Afghanistan where they're growing these short little resilient plants is
The poppy field.
and they're growing some other things too. So is the fact that battlefield survivability and what the enemy is doing on the battlefield now, as you're well aware, is blast injuries and the survivability of our soldiers. So I think that one of the concerns that I just have as a combat veteran who fought in Iraq is that, and who sustained, and I have a traumatic brain injury, is that we're talking about how the brain, the neuropsych connection, and the studies that probably need to be done, that I know need to be done before there's really forward movement. You know, if you're talking about whether or not you know about anybody dying from this, we don't know. We know
So
there's kids that are self-medicating.
There's
with
two
cannabis.
pieces to this. One is the Massachusetts piece, which is independent of veteran status.
Yeah.
And then the other is what the VA offers as
This is the
benefits.
federal government.
Right. And so we really probably ought to tackle those separately.
My whole thing is just understanding from a veteran's perspective. I'm not here to speak on behalf of VA in any capacity because I don't know what's going on in that. You know, in trauma-focused work, we're working with combat vets, military sexual trauma survivors, and doing bereavement work with family members who have lost somebody downrange. But combat vets are self-reporting that they're self-medicating with cannabis illegally and seeing the effects of that because we see it. We're seeing it. Plus and minus. I'm not clinical. I'm not a psychologist or a social worker or anything like that.
No, I understand. I do understand particularly some of the plus and minuses, particularly on self-medication. First of all, the VA hasn't allowed us to do any type of research out there in any great form because one, it's still classified as a Class A substance, a Class 1 substance, which allows us not to have the availability for the research and development that we would like to. There's nothing I would like to do than to team up with a pharmaceutical firm to find something that I could have a solution for, particularly so to our veterans. But we're very limited because they can't engage with us because of the separation of ranks here.
The American Legion at their national meeting about a month ago, around the same time the VA announced their new research studies, the American Legion made it the central issue of their national convention was getting this, kind of shining a light on it, making it available, getting it approved, understanding modalities of treatment.
Getting it looked at or getting the research initiative. I just briefed all the research, one of the biggest research elements in the country is at Bedford. I just briefed them on Monday. So, I mean, there's money out there if people presented it. And
The VA starting their study in California. I forget the name of the group they're doing it with.
The VA,
what I'm saying is that Massachusetts, California's great, but we have things that are organic here.
No pun intended.
Is anybody bringing it
The
forward?
VA, the VA did announce that in some states that they will prescribe marijuana.
Did they?
And I believe that those are states that have a recognized, approved medical marijuana
Dispensing
program.
program.
Legalize medical marijuana.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they came out about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago.
yeah.
And what they did was, at that same news conference, they came out and indicated that they would reduce the strain on research and development and open that up a little bit more to us, but we'll see.
So there's only been one university that's been allowed to do research up until that ruling, and that was University of Mississippi.
Yeah.
It was the only place that was federally allowed to grow legal marijuana. Everybody else was growing.
This is through the VA doing research?
No, this was
It's the US
through the
government.
DEA, through the
So is the VA.
FDA, right, so federally. And so it has not been thought to be high-quality strains, and that's been getting better. And I think now they're allowing other people to do it. University of New Mexico has just said that they're going to do a research
Right,
program.
correct. University of Mississippi has been working with the government for an awful long time.
And
When I
they've been
say-
the only source.
They were the only, that's correct.
Right.
I gotta tell you a real funny story about
Okay.
The
I was just going to say, the research also has been done, though, in Europe, in Israel. So there's been a lot of research that has been done, not in the US, in other countries. And so, you know.
General research or veteran research?
General research, but that will tell about PTSD and that sort of thing. So
So
it's general.
PTSD, then the TBI piece.
I'm talking about is comorbidity between like traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can't do the research on that because it's not legal to do the research on it right now.
Right.
So, I mean, that's because it's federal.
But how does it factor in with like what they're studying in Israel if there's no correlation between that and like what's going on with our veterans? And I
I'm not sure if
understand
they
that.
don't have, that's a great question, and to see if they have, research papers on that sort of thing for their particular veterans, because, they have a lot of-
We've done stuff, we've done stuff with the Israelis, I have personally. But on the PTSD side of the house, not really even looking at, any of the, and, factoring in any of the other stuff, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's worth a look or something.
Well, I know
Yeah,
the
that's a good
Israelis
question,
do
so
have-
what other research has been done?
The Israelis are very active with regards to finding the oils, and they've even exported the oils to the United States or something.
The other problem with the VA and the federal government is you can go to Colorado and buy one strain and dosage, and it's not going to be the same dosage you're going to have here in Ipswich. So there's no national regulation.
That's correct.
And
And-
until there's some sort of a national, where I can go in my local store, and you can go in the store in California, it's like opening a Budweiser, it's the same here as it is in
Okay,
California.
that's where I can answer that right now.
And that's what the federal government will wait for.
That's right, and we have addressed that as 2 days ago, 3 days ago. We will have a brand for IPA. It will be the same, no matter which shelf it's on, whether it's in the Ipswich store, whether it's in another retail store of ours, or whether it's in another retail store that chooses to have our product, because they can take 30% and sell product there. That's huge. And the only way we can control that is our experience with that particular strain. It will stay that particular strain. That's a great question, because what happens is you go next door, you buy 10%. Jesus, you expect 10%, then all of a sudden, man, you go to the other guy and it's a 15, 18%, and it puts you in a place where you really don't want to be. So that's why our branding is imperative, so that it is the same shape, the same strength, the same THC, the same CBD in each delivery.
And
That
when
is
you-
huge.
So I think what I heard Greg say was kind of some pan-national standard. So when do you think it might progress to that point?
That will go when we get 2/3 of the, it is my opinion, it will go like that. When we get 2/3 of the country to pose some type of recreational standard, because with the recreational standard, the Uncle Sam will understand how much money is involved. They will make a parallel move in quality and assurance in the same way the distilleries have it today. Done. It will be flat out. With that, there will be, and the example would be Massachusetts. There's supposed to be 35 medicinal licenses, okay? There's not 35 open. There are not 35 cultivation areas, so some of these retails have to buy from someplace. So that's what makes it more acceptable for the government, when they know that they have a concentrated area that they don't have to watch with 10 cameras, 1 or 2 cameras. They're going to get the taxes on it, and that's what's going to make everything move. That's what's going to give us our money for the research and development. That's when that's going to happen. But
So while we wait for the VA, what happens if there's a veteran who wants to try it properly through medical channels? How do you do that now?
what happens is normally the individual would have a good relationship with their doctor. You can't just go to a doctor and say, hey, I want a prescription for this here, because you don't get a prescription. You never get a prescription. That's the whole thing about it all. You get qualified. You go to your physician and say, look, I want to see about this medicinal marijuana. What type of medications am I on that would interact with this, okay? That's the first step you do, okay? You talk to him with that. If he agrees with that, then what will happen is, usually the MD will just give you the paperwork to indicate that you're in chronic pain, what your ailments are. Then you would go to another type of doctor, primarily a psychologist.
It's a psychologist, or they have specifically trained now. I know two of them, one in the West, that are trained, they're, you know.
Qualified to give
To
the...
marijuana prescriptions,
right.
and that's all they
So
see.
it depends on the state, and each state has different different legislation for that. And so in
This-
Massachusetts, I think you have to have a continuing medical education certificate as a doctor to be
Okay.
able to recommend cannabis to your patients. And you have to have 8 hours or 4 hours, it depends on the state. And so I think it's 8 hours in
I think it-
Massachusetts?
Yeah.
8 hours.
8 hours
Is-
of continuing education to understand, to learn
A
about.
CEU, as a
CEU.
psychologist.
Right, yeah.
So you go and you
Psychologist,
take a CEU class and then.
as a
and you're-
psychologist or a primary care physician, any type
Right.
of physician can do
But
that.
that's different than the category of a prescribing medical internist that does nothing other than the medical
Right,
marijuana.
the doc says,
And-
yeah, Roger, you got the blessing to get it, now go to this person and get it.
So the guys, Dr. Jeremy Spiegel and Danvers, who's from up in Portland, what category is he in?
I believe he's just a medical marijuana
So,
individual.
but if you're a psychologist, you do a webinar or whatever, and you get to get.
No
the
psychologist can prescribe. It's only.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
saying to get authorized to prescribe and recommend that course of action to somebody, it's a CEU?
Yes,
Yeah.
That's it?
yep.
Okay.
I believe
And it depends
Siegel's-
on the state.
I believe Siegel's also a psychiatrist too, or psychologist. But what happens is, at that point, you don't get a prescription. You get a certificate. That certificate allows you to go to the state. No prescriptions, right? Everybody's thinking prescriptions. There's no prescriptions. If we had a prescription, we'd go to Rite Aid, Conley's or something, and we'd get our medicine and come about. So now we get a certificate that we have to download, fill out with the state, take a selfie, send a passport photo in, and then wait. Wait, they give you, I think, 2 or 3 days. They send you a confirmation, yes, and a paper piece that you are on the medical marijuana patient list. Then they send you a plastic card thereafter that has a barcode on it. With that barcode, it is entered into the system. Once you enter a dispensary, it gives you an indication of what is available to you at that time. You have the option of a main dispensary and a second. That's it. You can't jump from dispensary to dispensary. And again, here we go with the branding. They know that every time they come into this place, in the Ipswich Pharmaceutical, they know that whatever they get is going to be the same level of concentration that they got before. That's the only way that we can keep it consistent in potency, knowing that ours is the same strain, and we know that during the process because we're in the clone business too. We have to grow a plant that we like, and from that plant we take clones. Sometimes we'll take 100, 200 clones. It's the same background. It looks the same. It's exactly the same plant that we're harvesting. So we know that sometimes during the cloning process, plants will get a loss in potency. There we go. We're starting again to ensure that our potency is to where it's so be. So that is important because self-medication, you don't, what are you self-medicating and how much are you self-medicating? Right? That's pretty much it. That's the big downfall about this. And if we had more R&D, I know that we could pinpoint strains, we could pinpoint actions and dosages.
So, Jody, have you seen, maybe you can share with us incidents you've seen with veterans who have had no luck with this, veterans who have had problems with it, and veterans who have really experienced enormous relief?
Yeah, primarily in South Boston. I have seen the veterans that there's some it just doesn't work for them. They get dizzy, regardless to if it's a low CBD, high CBD. It just doesn't hit them properly. It's just not their medicine, and I understand that. But then, there are a lot, like how I said earlier, I grew up them that had chronic pain and changed their life where they could get up, go to sleep. That was the most important thing for them, being able to go to sleep with the pain. And then they get up half rested in the morning to be able to go meet with society and do that. I don't want to give numbers or particular names, but I'll use myself as an example. It's nice to get up in the morning with not that tweak in my ankle. I know it's coming, so I'm not trying to hide that it's not there, and I'm not trying to mask anything. But if I can get that little edge so I know that I can have a conversation with my attorneys, with the industry, with the business, or with an investor, without having to worry about a tweak or sharp pains. That's how it affects me. It's not for everybody. Okay, it's not for everybody. But I do believe it is very beneficial to the veterans. That was my mission. That is still my mission. And it's a costly mission, okay? But I'm hanging in there, I will tell you. And I have a lot of thanks from a lot of vets, and a lot of the civilian people think I'm nuts. But
Some vets think you're nuts too.
that's right. This is why we're here.
Can I just say something real quick?
Yeah.
So why I'm not, like, listen, I respect your horticultural knowledge, I respect, what you presented here and everything, is that 10 of my friends have completed suicide, okay? Some of them were self-medicating with marijuana, okay? To me, and what was reported and is in their medical files, okay, was that they were on a toboggan slide down, okay? I believe, just me being, the person that I am, I guess, and not having any type of medical degree or anything, is that there is a correlation between the fact that they were all had TBI, okay? It wasn't, they weren't sanctioned to do this, they were, just picking it up on the street or whatever, and quite obviously it didn't work for them. Maybe there were some other things at play there, it's the neuropsych thing. I think we just need to look a little deeper into this, and that, I definitely think there's some, for me, Rich, just talking for myself right now, I think you might have some grounds to do some research. If the VA is already doing research, you know more about it than I do, Ed, and I work for the VA. Then maybe that's the path to, to push on the local level here.
Well, I agree with you, but I also agree that you're right. They got unmonitored, untested type of flower or whatever they.
It's the neuropsych thing that's
got-
concerning.
All the time. But you don't, of our vets, no neurologist will sign off if you have a brain injury for medical marijuana.
Right, and even let's
They
even
won't
say
go
that that's
in.
not the case though, is like if you're prescribing this, and I assume that there's some type of like clinical work that accompanies it, and you're just not cutting people loose and being like, here's your prescription, like move out and draw fire. I would hope that there's some type of frequency where readjustment counseling is, move forward, because
I mean, that's
sometimes
the piece
sometimes
that
lack of
is
sleep doesn't have anything to do with pain.
Recipe.
We're all, three of us, Greg in Special Forces, Ed and I were both in the 82nd Airborne Division, we're paratroopers, we're hitting the ground going pretty goddamn fast with about 180 pounds of gear strapped to us every time, with Greg friggin', you don't even want to know how many times Greg's job. But, and Bob being, Bob downrange in OIF, we're all kind of like, I friggin' wake up with pain every goddamn day. Every day, So yeah, I don't think any of us wants to live with pain. I'm in my late 30s, and I didn't think I'd have the body of a friggin' 80-year-old.
Wait till your son is 17, then you'll experience pain.
Yeah.
I think one of the unintended outcomes from this movement across the country is you are going to have a lot of statistical information now, because it is this so-called legalized drug in different parts of the country, and eventually it'll probably sweep across the whole country. And then there'll have to be some sort of regulation that brand, that vials the same across the country.
Mhm.
That's when we get that 2/3 vote, when the government gets involved, they will start the regulations, and that's when we will have the R&D available to us. They know that the money will be coming in from the branding, the same as a liquor tax, and it's all about
Because
money.
you
and
can use the
exposure.
pill now, but the pill has been fabricated such that it doesn't give you
The
the
same
medicinal
effect.
value
Yeah.
that some
And
of
that's
these-
great. I mean, it's great that it's a big business and everything, and I don't quite frankly, I don't care about any of that. All I care about is the people that I see. I see 12 new veterans every week between Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan and combat vets.
Well, that
We do completely trauma-focused work, so we're seeing people in pain.
that little
Whether
blurb
it's
you,
physical or psychological, you know what I
Well,
mean?
you understand too, there's a lot of pain that you don't see, it's invisible pain too, especially in the
Oh,
bones
yeah, I
and
know.
stuff.
That's,
That,
yeah, I mean, I work in a readjustment counseling
Okay,
facility.
so,
Yeah.
From another perspective though, when I'm looking at it from, I'm on Cymbalta, Lyrica, baclofen, gabapentin, and 3 or 4 other drugs
Mm.
to control my pain,
Mm.
and it controls it, but it doesn't control it completely.
Mm.
And now we've got this new thing that it's not even touching.
Mm.
I'm looking at, could I possibly use medical marijuana instead of taking all these bloody drugs?
Mhm.
I'm like, I'm gonna have so much residual, I couldn't pass the piss test for the next 40 years.
Mm.
And I think,
I guess that's where the relationship with you and your doctor comes in,
Yeah.
and that's where the recommendation
Yeah.
is made. I can't, when it comes to us, the folks have already been vetted, they've already been vetted through the state. They meet and must keep in compliance or they're gone.
How long is the card good for? 6 months or something, right?
I think it's a year. Annually, you have to renew it,
I see.
okay?
So like on the TBI, how is that vetted?
It's not, no one will sign off on that.
Okay.
They'll sign off on a chronic pain,
Mhm.
but if you've had either an MRI or a CAT scan that
Mhm.
shows that, or if you're presently having any, visual disturbances, seizures, any of that stuff, nobody signs off on that.
But that's not always necessarily a part of the TBI screening.
Right,
You're not gonna get into the MRI automatically. That's DoD and.
right.
But that's also
Yeah.
self-reported by the vet. So, I mean, if they knew that that would opt them out, they might not do it.
Right.
now, once you get this card and everything, how mobile is it? If I go cross-country and I go through a state that has a program, can I use my card there?
No, Massachusetts only reciprocal to, I believe it's New Hampshire and Vermont at this time. If you go to Colorado, what would happen is you would have to buy recreationally the same product, but on a different, not as a patient, but as a recreational individual.
But I could talk to them
You
when
can
I'm
talk to them.
getting in Mass?
Yeah,
and-
absolutely, yes. They'll know, once you talk to them, they'll know, and you have an idea of what you've been getting in Massachusetts,
Right.
that, yes, they will understand exactly the blend, what you have, not by asking, because HIPAA requirements say, we can't ask what's wrong with you, you have to tell us.
Right.
So, you would have to tell them,
Now, if I understand what you said earlier, I could get a strain that's not gonna get me high, but address the pain centers that I have.
correct, we're working on, and there are a couple of strains out there that have a very, very low THC and a high CBD. A 2% CBD is a high CBD. Usually you're averaging somewhere around 0.2% to 1% if you're lucky. And that's the product that targets the chronic pain.
So there's actually a website that Jody showed me at one point. It almost looks like a table of the common elements that lists different strains. I'll put a link to that on the page when I set that up.
It's called Leaf Fly. You can go on there and it gives you a breakdown of even a color code of what the plants are. Purple would be an indica, primarily for pain. Green would be a hybrid. A red would be the sativa, and then the orange would be that heavy CBD with trying to eliminate most of the THC out there. I just wish the VA allowed us to do a little bit more research.
Who's we?
We is anybody.
I mean, are people pushing? Like I said, I mean,
There we go, we. I think the American people deserve a little bit of insight into this research. They've spent a lot of money, a lot of tax money, and a lot of boys to their death. They owe it to us to do the research, so that's who we are, okay? I don't want to get going on research, okay? Because they are the culprits right here.
Okay.
In that little article you had there, they've already got a diagnosis associated with a cannabis use disorder.
Yeah, so I think there's some research out there. That's one of the things I was going to point out is what I was able to find out was that's.
And it's up
That's correct, they did a research and they.
24%.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, PTSD, cannabis, self-disclosure, cannabis use disorder.
Yeah.
And
So
so there's your
You know, if they want to send us over
diagnosis is
there,
already being ginned
if they
up.
want to send us over there, wherever we go, we deserve.
Well, we volunteered.
We
We
today,
all,
so-
we all volunteered. We
Doesn't
didn't get
matter.
drafted.
We did take an oath, right, to protect our country from all enemies, foreign and domestic, so help
I
me God.
volunteered, no one made me do it. I had to volunteer 3 times.
Yeah, me
It
too.
doesn't matter, you still take that oath when you volunteer. So, we took our oath, I think they owe us a little bit of R&D. It's just a stigma, that's all it is at the time, it's not a socially acceptable.
So there
thing.
is no national push for research by the
It's coming from
industry?
patients.
No, but in Massachusetts, the medical marijuana industry now has to carry a same standards as the pharmaceutical industry, the pharmaceuticals.
Because
So
they
that's-
announced in Colorado, I think they went up over, I'm gonna throw a number out, I'm not sure it's exact, like $60 million that they've recouped in profits.
Yeah.
So the
Massachusetts.
money's available to do the research.
Okay, Massachusetts indicates that in the,
I'm just saying, the money is being made.
this is where I'm going right now.
So we
Yes.
need to take
Why
some of
can't they
that
take some
off
of
the
it?
top and do the research.
Massachusetts indicates that they're gonna do $1 billion annually
In
$1
tax
billion
or revenue?
in sales. And how much taxes they're gonna get off that, I would assume they're gonna create a 10% to 17% base because, of course, they've already addressed the recreational side and how much they wanna get on the tax base and that there. So, but without the money, we can't do the R&D.
I mean, we're fortunate to be in one of the highest medically, technology-driven places in the country, if not the world. So we should be able to gin something up to make segue into the VA.
I actually have reached out to lobbyists that are involved with some of these pharmaceuticals and asked them to address, once we get up and running, to use our oils in their research and development program with us to see what we can do. Everybody has to give up a little. We're willing to give up our oils. They're willing to give up some time in R&D. This is about a mission that I started, but it's cost a long dollar now too. We're into the same numbers that a bio team would be, a R&D team. It's something that an offshoot of a pharmaceutical would put out there as a small budget just to run an R&D team. So when it comes to the medicinal side, I feel like we're not given the opportunity the same as the big guys. We're limited with regards to the DEA, with the federal government. And I don't think this is a win-all pill. I don't think it can cure everybody. Just like the other pharmaceuticals, pieces can't cure everybody, but I think this is a step towards helping some. That's how I feel. We can't cure the world. We can try, but
Now, Joe, when they come to you with the prescription, is it designated how much or how often they can pick it up or?
what happens is when they come to the facility, they don't come with a prescription, they come with an ID card.
Card.
So what happens is they have to come through a double locked door. It's called an interlock door. They show their card to the secretary, the greeter, whoever it would be, the counselor. Once that's authorized and the door is locked behind them, then the interlock door will come in. At that point, they have the option of seeing counsel, to which we would sit down, give them the breakdown of the strains, the breakdowns of what ailments. We can't ask them, they have to tell us. I believe that most people, when they come in, know what they want. The first thing they ask, I've been to a number of dispensaries and I've seen the patients come in, what's the highest THC? That's not the whole thing about medicine. What's the highest THC? Okay, so that's what I have to deal with too, okay? So when a patient comes in and they ask us to help them, what would you recommend? And here we would sit them down. We would go on the laptop and indicate what is on the laptop and what would you like? This is what we have. The laptop will indicate a breakdown. If you go on that leaf slide, what it does is it gives you an idea of what the medicine is. It gives you the medical effect, the negative effect, and there's another effect it gives you. But and that's what we would do, sit down and talk to these people. We don't prescribe them anything. We explain to them what we feel it will do for them, and they pick what they choose.
How often can they come back? How much do they get?
Over a 2-month period, they can get 10 ounces. For the average sick individual, they would never consume that much, okay? For those persons that are truly ill, they're probably ill because they smoke so much. I'm sorry to say something like that, but to consume a half a pound of marijuana in a week period is a substantial amount of smoke in the body, a lot of carcinogens. So, but something else has led up to why they're being sick like that.
And they can't go from Ipswich to Beverly and do this again?
What they can do, if they chose to go to Salem, okay, they would have to pick Salem officially as their secondary. Okay, so as soon as they register in the same way as Salem, they'll say zip Ipswich. This is how much they got in Ipswich. This is their amount
So
available.
it's computerized, they can't shop around?
That's correct. It's a Massachusetts base and it's an automatic shutoff. So if they try to purchase more than what they have allocations for, it's over for them. They're eliminated from the program.
About other implications, I saw an article about how you could be denied license to carry and some other things.
That's primarily up to the chief of police. That's been less and less as time has gone on because it's been more socially accepted. Today, I'll give you an example. The average chief's age, probably 5 years ago or something, was probably around the 59, 60 years age. Now, today, a chief in most of the smaller towns, particularly so a lot of smaller towns I'm dealing with, Western Massachusetts, where cultivation is going to be, are in the 43-ish age, okay, younger, where that social cutoff line is where they're more accepted, and it's just a whole different age thing there.
If you apply for a license to carry, does that automatically come up that you're using medical marijuana, or is that a link, or?
What they do is they ask, no, it's not a link, what they ask you is if you are addicted to any type of prescription medication, and I think that's what it says on that. Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
And then just if you're dispensing food, lollipops and brownies, how is that packaged against children that might be in the home?
Well, we would address this. First of all, they don't look the same as any type of cookie you would get in a packaged form from a store. They're probably going to be individually wrapped, and on top of them, it would tell you exactly what the ingredients are in them. That's a pretty polarizing question, too. I got to tell you that, and it comes up a lot. If the individual has the responsibility of that card and the prescription, it is their responsibility to ensure that it is child-proof. We can make child-proof boxes, we can make child-proof containers to put the buds in, but if it's left out and the children get into it, then it's leaving the gun out without a gun, okay? So with that, they have to meet minimal personal requirements from themselves. They have to be responsible. I mean, if a child has an overdose of an opiate in the house where a parent has a prescription, we know it comes down on the parent. So they have a responsibility themselves, to their children, and to the industry itself. In a violation like that, they would be eliminated. But ours would all be prepackaged, all would be notified, adult use only. We would like to, one of our ideas is to cut the cookies into 4s. People have a tendency to eat the whole thing, but if it's cut into 4s, there's different marketing techniques that we're trying to use so that it keeps people safer and everybody else there safe also. We're gonna have minimum requirements that we're gonna have sealed packages, things of that nature. But once they're open in their home, it's up to them to make it safe. It's huge. Again, the polarizing thing about driving, that's another issue. How do I stop somebody from driving after they come out of our place from smoking marijuana? I can't. It's illegal. It's up to the law enforcement agency to do that. They probably came in stoned, okay? So how can I enforce something that I'm not sure of? Once they leave here, they have to meet minimum requirements and compliances, or else it's over. It's over. And I don't want to be subjected to anybody out there that's going to cause harm from my shop to society. It's not the way it's supposed to work. So I'm pretty dead against somebody coming up, somebody trying to get in the smoking thing. That was a big thing in Ipswich. What if they stop in the road? What if they do this? What if they do that? We have a detail, police detail. I think they will move along quite quickly once the police detail comes along, okay? So, and the security is huge for us. It is important because without the security there, the help and the security of the police chief, it doesn't work, okay? We're not out to shoo anybody away with the authorities, but we want to ensure that we're working with the authorities in compliance and let them have the last say. If they don't like somebody entering, last say. They have the first and last say.
And now, how about theft of a product? I mean, if the person brings them to their home and someone steals it, presently now, if you have a narcotic stolen from your home, the insurance will not pay for it, and you can't get another prescription without a police report that goes down the list.
Okay, what happens is if there's a theft, that's what they have to do, is make a police report. But I don't believe that changes their quantity amount that they purchase. That's still inclusive of what they are. If it's stolen, it's pretty much stolen. But now, as a brand, I love this brand stuff, okay? As a brand, our own brand, if that is caught outside, they can do a DNA test and know where it came from. When it comes to us, and we know it's our blend, we can go back on the register and see who bought that particular blend. There we go. And that's where the cycle comes in. And of course, we would never do that unless we were subpoenaed to do that. They would have to come to us with the samples, and because they're only supposed to have to purchase, I think it's 1 ounce a day, but they can progressively store that over their 2 months, and if they don't smoke it, and if it did get stolen, there was a substantial amount there, dollar-wise and weight-wise. So, yeah, they would have to follow the same routine, because to me, it's a medicine, it's the same routine, same compliance, same everything.
Can't you put a sticker or something on it, you know, like
We
the
do.
same universal sticker, like no gluten? or something like that?
Yes, everything will
Change
have
drugs.
everything will have a sticker on it. It will
Yeah.
say adult use only, medicinal adult use only. We have a little medical type of
Yeah, universal.
sign.
Yeah.
Again, it's up to the individual. You have a prescription at the house, you know what the dosage is, you know all that's there. When it comes to the medicinal side, until we get it branded and the R&D down to where we know we have that particular process done, we can't tell you the dosages. That's why it's so important to keep it away from everybody who doesn't have any idea what's going on.
Now, when are you expected to be open?
As of right now, on the 1st of October, we have a walkthrough from the planning board on the site, because we're using the same building, we're using the same footprint, we're not changing anything. So that's the second meeting we had with the planning board. The third meeting will be on the 13th of October. I think it's the 13th of October. And at that time, they'll address maybe some issues that they would want upgraded, maybe parking lot lines and things like that. Maybe, we don't have lines now, but it was for larger vehicles. Today, the parking lots are small. Okay, so no, they want to find out how many cars we can, those are the little studies that the planning board is going to decide on. Hopefully, we'll get the, within 60 days, we'd like to get these special permits to start construction. And with that, during the construction phase, we're going to ask the state if we can start the grow process, because we have self-contained secure units that we can start on premises to grow in when the construction is finished. Hopefully, April 1st will be open. No guarantees, but that's my target dates. Of course, my target dates were 2 years ago, but this is where we are today. I believe sometime in April we should be available, and that's pretty much it. We could use all the support we could get, particularly so when it comes to these meetings. But there are a lot of people that it's not my backyard type of thing. You will get residents that have been notified that will show up, 8 of them, and then nobody else in town shows up because it's not in their backyard. But because we're in compliance, we're not worried about the neighbors. We're willing to work with the neighbors. We had outreach programs. We won't talk to them. But sometimes these subjects can't be broached with people. But we're willing to talk with anybody in the community that wants to talk with us. I feel that our donations will certainly help in many ways. One, hopefully with education, because these children have to be educated on this also. It's not something that they should just have accessibility to and walk into. This is not your grandfather's garden. This is not 1972. This is not 80. This is not 96. This is a different science today. What do you think? Different science altogether with regards to the potency and everything? It's an entirely different area. So, also I wish that we had more research and development, and hopefully we'll be successful enough to be able to afford some R&D. I'd love to team up with somebody from the VA. I'd love to work with them